Let's now dive deeper into the technology side of the travel industries. I'm joined in studio now by Henry Weinstein, who is the founder of Travel Tech Nation. Henry, thank you so much for joining me. Now, you just had this conference that happened over the weekend. What was your involvement in this, and how did it go?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here, Sarah. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me.
So my involvement, if we go a bit back, originally I'm a venture capitalist, and I look at companies across all the industries, but I have a soft spot for the travel industry because for the last 4 years, I was actually actively investing on behalf of big corporations within the travel space. And then when this happened, obviously travel got affected really bad. And so I started talking to my portfolio company CEOs and CEOs outside of that, and starting to kind of try and help and mitigate this situation. It was clear that the biggest problem was the lack of information flow, right? I mean, no one is talking. A lot of companies were kind of either wouldn't want to talk because things were going bad, or because they couldn't because they're publicly traded companies. Anyway, all of these different players had different reasons. But the biggest problem is that if we want to make the industry stronger or accelerate coming back from this, we needed to open up, this type of vocal contribution. And so so that was the idea behind the conference.
Okay, so you've had this conference for people to come forward with their new innovation and technology. How does the ever-evolving world of technology affect the way that people travel?
So I think maybe it would be interesting to think about what should be the main interest now for travel companies going forward. I think right now, having the industry being hit so hard, the main focus would probably be on technology innovation, anywhere from the digital aspect of transformation, and then optimization, and trying to help cost savings. So anything along those lines that will help these companies essentially become stronger players in the future. That's what they're going to focus on. And we see a lot of Israeli startups actually focusing on those type of issues.
Talk to me about some of the bigger players in the travel industry. How have they used this technology to evolve and sort of keep up with the current climate that we're in at the moment?
So I think we see major players actually trying to, first of all, be defensive a bit, right? I mean, their partners are being hit hard. So we see companies like Airbnb that has reported invested over 250 million, helping their hosts essentially survive this situation, and also opening their assets so that people in the health workforce can actually have a safe place to be where they're close to where they work, right? Overworked health workers. And then we see companies like Lyft that have set aside special funds to actually support drivers that have been diagnosed with COVID-19 during this really difficult time for them, and also support people who are in need of travel, like let's say low-income senior citizens that need to go out and buy food, or obviously health workers, they need to get to work. So that's kind of the steps that they're trying to do to support their communities.
And finally, Henry, you just mentioned before Israeli startups. We know that this is the startup nation here. Talk to me about the travel startup industry here in Israel and how they're sort of dealing with this whole situation at the moment.
So I think the biggest problem right now is that, well, it's always been a problem, right? The gap, the information gap, right? If you're a corporate or an investor and you're looking for the right startup, if you're a startup that's looking for the right partner. So that's kind of how we try to mitigate that using Travel Tech Nation. So that was the actual cause of setting it up. And we see startups like ePlane, for example, that have focused, and one of the only startups that have been able to announce a fundraise during this difficult period, but also focusing on cost saving. So they're targeting maintenance and repair for airlines, which is a huge part of their P&L, and they're trying to automate some of that. We see also more consumer-facing hospitality startups, companies like Splitty or Routier that are also focusing on how can they help consumers save money, or how can they help the organizations, the hospitality organizations, be more efficient and have better conversations with their customers. So that's kind of how we're trying to mitigate this situation right now with innovative Israeli startups.
Okay, well, it looks like you had a really successful conference over the weekend. Henry Weinstein, thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back after the break. Stick with us.